Welcome back. Let's talk about the 1990s. Now, we've been talking about the 80s, an era of lots of money, big success for Japan. And right at the outset of the 1990s, we see a really big change. A crisis enters the scene. In 1990, the Japanese stock market and real estate market both have a big downturn. Suddenly, the Japanese bubble economy bursts, and just money starts becoming more and more scarce. Now, fortunately for the anime industry, the success of anime in the 80s and some things in the late 80s like Akira helped to buoy the industry. There was enough money being made by anime that the financiers were still willing to put money into a lot of anime made in the early 90s. As a result, the early to mid 90s sees the flowering of many beloved anime franchises. Ones that we still know today saw their beginnings in or around the early 90s. Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, Tenchi Muyo, Ranma 1/2, Yu Yu Hakusho, Saint Seiya. All of these series really had their heyday back in this period. Now, that's kind of remarkable when you think about how much sort of traces its way back to this period, despite the downturn in money. So I want you to imagine being an animator at this point. You're working at a large studio, a studio that's been around for decades probably at this point, and you're serving a wide variety of people. You're making some anime for the average person, a lot of anime for otaku. You can do weird experimental anime because there's budget for that. There's some space for that. So it's a really rich, robust time for anime in a lot of ways. But it's also a complicated time. And I think no anime series captures that more perfectly than a surprise success from 1995, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, EVO was massively popular when it came out, and people have always tried to dissect that popularity. And I think when you dissect something, you kill it. So it's really hard to nail down all the specifics of exactly why something is exactly this popular. But I think one of the factors is the fact that Evangelion kind of captured the zeitgeist of Japan at the time. Japan was a country where things had been going so well for so long, then suddenly things went sour, and people felt much more conflicted about things. What are we going to do next was really the mood of Japan at the time. In many places, obviously not everywhere, but that was kind of a prevailing feeling. And you see that very much in Evangelion. That's very much the tone of that series, is this angst, this worry over what's going to happen next and what we should be doing. That things were better and they're much worse now. And that's another thing happening in the anime industry itself. You know, as much money as there was, and as much experimentation as there was that looming overhead worry of the economy that was getting worse and worse. And sure enough, by the late 90s, you start to see anime budgets really dry up. And just the money starts really flowing out of the anime industry. It's just really hard to make that happen. So, to make anime made. And I think there are two anime series from the late 90s that really capture this. Both came out in 1998, actually. And the first is Serial Experiments Lain. Lain is a weird techno-thriller, very dramatic, serious show, very experimental, thus the title. It aired late at night, and and the animation's pretty darn cheap, but it looks interesting, it looks weird. And it just captured a lot of attention. It became a cult classic very quickly. The kind of thing you can make when kind of eyes are turned away, when the industry has had enough money flowing out of it that people aren't really paying that much attention, and you can do weird things and just pump something out and hope that it is successful. Another series from the time, from 1998, was Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040. This is a remake of a successful anime franchise starting in the late 80s, Bubblegum Crisis. And this was remarkable for the fact that it came about partly because of America. North America suddenly became an important element in anime at this point. because sales of anime on VHS and DVD and such in North America were so strong that the North American licensors were now going back to Japan and offering them cash to produce more anime series. Bubblegum Crisis had been selling so well for this licensor that, legend has it, they went back to the original studio and said, hey, if you're interested in producing more of this franchise, another series in this franchise, we would put up some money for that, up front, so that would get made. And that was one of the reasons that show got made. So you start seeing North America and North American money start to offset some of those reduced budgets domestically. It's sort of a ray of sunshine in all of the difficult things happening in anime at the time. And so you start getting to see a bit more influence from North America. Not in the sense of writing things or whatever, but in the sense that, North America is so big that we can now make anime series and know that we're going to make some money overseas at least. And that can help offset some of these problems. Unfortunately, that was not to last long either, but that's the subject for the 2000s video.